Hello, my name is Jimmy and this is the 2022 Nissan Rogue. And this is the 2023 Mazda CX-50. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get the two vehicles at the exact same time, but I did get them back to back, so I can do a fair comparison here. This is one of the most popular segments, the compact but not so compact SUV. Everyone wants ones these days, and every manufacturer is stepping up in this segment. What used to be filled with just plasticky interiors and lethargic little four-cylinders, now we have luxurious cabins, and while most of these are still four-cylinders, they're generally assisted with turbochargers. But in any case, let's dive into the CX-50 in terms of the looks a little bit more. On the front end, it's distinctively Mazda, isn't it? You got really elegant headlamps. I love the intricate details they have inside. There's no fog lamps down on the bottom, but you do get some turn signals down there. It's an aggressive looking front end and I absolutely love it. On the side, because it is the more rugged version of, well, the Mazda's lineup, we do have some body cladding on the bottom. 20-inch wheels, which doesn't really add to that ruggedness, but there's this Meridian edition, which comes with 18s, and that does look cool. On the side, this is the GT trim, so the top trim here. So we do get some glossy black door mirrors. And I mean, it's a really good looking side profile, if I may say so. You do have proximity door sensors on the front, but unlike the Rogue, you don't get that on the back. But at least the doors still open 90 degrees, which does allow you easier access to the rear cabin. Moving around back, I love these LED tail lamps. They look really good, and they flow into this rear haunch here, and it just makes the vehicle look so much more aggressive. It's nice and wide on the bottom and skinny on top. It just makes it, well, a little bit more athletic in this looks rather than just a typical box on wheels. The rear bumper is fine, there's nothing really too much about it, but you do get dual exhaust tips on the bottom, and because this does have the turbo motor, they are a little bit larger, just a little bit. Moving back to the Rogue here, and well, the Rogue is not as distinctive. It is more just normal, but there's nothing wrong with that. The front end, you get the deep V-motion grille that all Nissan now has, LED headlamps, LED fog lamps, and LED turn signals. Off to the side, you got 19-inch wheels, as this is the top platinum trim. On base models, it's 17s and most others are 18s. You got body cladding along the side here, chrome because it is the upper trim. What I really like is this blacked out A-pillar here. It does make the front end of this vehicle stand out, and you can get a blacked out roof option as well and actually complement that, well, just really well. I like that a lot. And same thing with the rear doors here. Basically the same as Mazda, you're able to open it 90 degrees, which just makes loading anything or anyone into the rear a lot easier. But Nissan stepped up. They did one better than the Mazda. There's a button here allowing you to lock and unlock the vehicle from the rear. That makes this the much better family vehicle, just that one feature alone. But let's go to the back. We got a little roof spoiler, LED taillights, that's really it. Some body cladding, some chrome. I mean, it's a pretty standard SUV look. There's nothing that screams, look at me, or anything like that with the Rogue. Checking out the trunk space between these two, the Rogue gives us 36.5 cubic feet, and it has this nifty cargo divider, which is actually pretty handy. If you want to fold down the rear seats, on this top trim, we get these handles in the back that allows us to increase the volume to 74.1 cubic feet with a simple pull of this lever. This is quite large in comparison to the CX-50. While the CX-50 is bigger than the CX-5, it's nowhere near as big as the Rogue at 31.4 cubic feet with the seats up and 56.3 with the seats down. It certainly is a little bit smaller. That said, because of the CX-50 trunk space is deeper, I was able to fit the full-size stroller in line with the vehicle rather than turning it sideways. In terms of space in the rear seats, the Rogue and the CX-50 is quite similar, although in the CX-50 you do get less headroom simply due to that overall roofline. In terms of legroom though, both are very similar, and the seats are plenty comfortable. In the Rogue here, I have baby shades on the side, which once again makes it the perfect family vehicle. The seats are heated and there's a little bit of recline as well. As these are family SUVs, let's see how well child seats fit. Within the Rogue, I was able to fit both my Klek Ling and Klek Foomf with no issues. I do like the wide opening doors as it makes the cabin just easier to access. There's an additional lower anchor in the middle, allowing a child seat to be installed in the center using that lower anchor, but it does take up the space on the driver's side. So if you're thinking of putting your child seat in the center, it is best to use the seatbelt install method instead. As for the CX50, while the roofline is a bit lower, I didn't have any issues here. There's still plenty of space for the oomph and the length. Overall, the Rogue being a bit bigger, it does mean there's a bit more space within the cabin for your little ones. But in the back of the CX50, I had the child seat installed in the center with my in-laws sitting on either side, and there was no issues. As for the front seats, they're very, very comfortable. This being the top trim, I got Napa leather in here, and I do like this caramel color. It just, well, makes it stand out just a little bit more. The seats themselves, they're heated, and I have a lumbar support, but it's only two-way, so it's just in or out. As for what's right in front of me, typical Nissan steering wheel. It's a new one that you get with the white Nissan lettering. It works well. The buttons are nice and small, but they're big enough still for your thumbs. No problems there. You get paddle shifters on the back to control the CVT, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. And behind that, a full digital cluster. This works really well, and it shows you everything that you need. I really like the two views that it has. It's quite simple. It's quite elegant. There's nothing, well, too crazy about it that makes you think, oh, there's so much animation or anything like that. But it shows you what you need, and, well, it does what a cluster should do. Show you a whole bunch of information. The heads-up display shows you what you need though, your speed and speed limit, and also the radar-guided cruise control information, like that. As for the infotainment screen, it is a large 9-inch unit. There's a dedicated volume as well as tuning knob on the side and some media buttons down below. I do like it. The system works well. Because it is full touchscreen, it just, well, functionality, it's just easier to use. And I do like just the overall styling of it. The only thing is it is slow a little bit from time to time. It does have wireless CarPlay, which I've been using, but the wireless Qi charger, because of the slope, for whatever reason, my iPhone 13 Pro, I can't get it to stay on that wireless charger. So most of the time it just doesn't charge. But you do have some USB ports down below, a USB-C as well as standard USB-A for you to charge your device. Overall, the interior of this Rogue is actually really nice. I've grown to really enjoy this lighter kind of caramel color interior. Before, I only want like a black interior, but this is nice. I actually really enjoy this. And it's actually a spacious cabin. You know, you got big windows. It just feels, you know, a nice place to be. That's really what it comes down to. But what about the CX50? Well, the interior here is actually really nice. First, the seats. Napa seats, just like the Rogue, but I must say the Napa that's on here, it's a little softer. And the seats themselves, they're actually firm, but they hold you really well into the seat itself. They're heated as well as cooled, so even on summer months like it is right now, you stay nice and chilled. You don't have to worry about it. In front of me, pretty typical Mazda steering wheel. I mean, it's the same one that's in the 3 as well as the CX-30. Works well, looks good. Love the leather. It's nice and soft. And the stitching on it, it's really nice. You do get paddle shifters behind it to control the 6-speed automatic. And behind that, a partial digital analog cluster. It actually looks really good because the screen itself, I mean, yes, there's a screen in the center, but you don't really notice it. It doesn't like scream, hey, I'm a screen, look at me kind of thing. It just blends really well within the analog segments off to the side. And I like that. Above, you have a heads-up display that shows you your speed limit, your adaptive cruise control information, your CarPlay information, turn-by-turn navigation, like all of that is there. Do like that. As for the infotainment, this one has been updated slightly comparing to the like Mazda 3 and the CX-30. This now has touchscreen, but only in specific areas. In your regular Mazda menu, you still use this rotary knob, which I love. No problems with that. It works really well to control all the different functions. It's kind of like BMW's iDrive. It just works. There's nothing wrong with the knob. However, in CarPlay works with the knob, but sometimes, for example, you know, you want to punch in like the destination. Going through the alphabets, this is not the best way to do that. So that's why they implemented the touchscreen. So when you're stationary in CarPlay, you can punch in your destination, you can whatever you want to do, but it's only in CarPlay. In the Mazda menu, you cannot use the touchscreen for it. Personally, I like to see that option. However, I feel like most of the time I just use dictation or Siri to, enter the address anyways. Sometimes it's a little frustrating when it doesn't go through, but whatever your option is, now you have it. As for the rest of the interior, it's really, really nice in here. The stitching that's on the side, across the dash, the seats, it all blends in really well. Materials is high end, and the touch points are nice and soft. The only touch point that isn't soft, which I wish it would be, is the center console here. A little harder plastic. I'm the type of person when I drive, my knee is just right on this, so that hasn't been the best. Maybe in the aftermarket world, that can be fixed. I don't recall other Mazdas having this problem, so this might be a first. But like many Mazdas, the interior lighting here is all LED. So unlike the Rogue where it's just halogen bulbs, like I know you can put LED bulbs for like pennies. But the fact that Mazda has put that in and it has this kind of fade to turn off, it just shows that they paid a little bit more attention to the interior and the cabin space here. They want you to feel like this is a more premium product, whereas like the Rogue, it looks like a premium product. It really does, especially with that tan interior. But when you get down to the details, it just doesn't look like it's a premium product. Before we go for a drive, let's take a look what's underneath the hood. The base engines on both of these vehicles are actually quite similar, with a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder. The Rogue makes 181 horsepower, while the CX50 gets 187. But these aren't the base engines. This CX50 uses a 2.5 liter turbo that is in most of their product lineup. It makes 256 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque when using premium. All that is fed through a 6-speed automatic to all 4 wheels, making it the quicker of the two comparing to the Rogue. However, on the other side, the Rogue uses a variable compression 1.5 liter 3-cylinder turbo, and it's more efficient. With these 3 little cylinders, it makes 201 horsepower and 225 pound-feet of torque, and all of that is linked to a CVT and is pushed to all 4 wheels. And all of that translates to decent acceleration. And the CVT, it does that fake upshift, which actually is kind of cool because it sounds like a traditional automatic. I mean, you can get quite easily fooled by that, but I don't think that's a problem. The Rogue it's such a good, comfortable riding SUV. That's really what it comes down to. And that's really what you want in a family SUV, right? You want something that's comfortable. You want something that's, well, maybe a little bit boring, but there's nothing wrong with boring when it comes to a family SUV. That's what you're looking for. You want something that's a little bit more boring so that your kiddos in the back can, well, fall asleep. And they certainly can in this. It's super comfortable. The ride, sublime. There's nothing wrong with the ride. And it just soaks up all the bumps. It's relatively quiet. And on the highway, like I am right now, well, the adaptive cruise works well. The lane centering, that works really, really well. You almost can be hands off. It basically tells you to put your hands back on the wheel after a little bit, but there's nothing wrong with it. It just works. And that's really what you want in a family SUV, right? But before we come to a full conclusion, we do have to jump into the CX50 to talk a little bit about that. While the Rogue takes about 7.5 seconds to reach 60 miles per hour, this can beat it by a full second. And that engine sounds pretty darn good while accelerating. The 6-speed is actually really responsive. Even when you're traveling the way I am right now, if I floor it, it's instant. You get instant acceleration out of it, and there's no eco mode or anything like that to slow it down. It's just on normal. If you want a little bit more response, you can put it on sport mode to get the best out of this engine. And it's just, well, it's a very, very good powertrain. I do really enjoy this engine in basically all of Mazda's products that have it. But that's not the party piece of the CX-50. I mean, it's a great piece, but not the best part. The best part is the steering. Like a lot of Mazda vehicles, the steering it's just really, really well done. When you turn, like what it does is it wakes up and it just gives you a little bit. I mean, I have everything in the trunk just flailing around, but oh gosh. If you have everything in your vehicle secured, it makes for a very good time. What the steering does is it just has so much communication and feeling into it. You want to take this around the twisties. It's not something that you generally do for, a compact SUV like this. Sure, maybe like a BMW X3, especially an M product. But this, no, generally you just want to drive it. But this is so different. This is so enjoyable. This steering wheel, it just makes you feel so connected to the road. It has that Miata-like presence to it. Mazda makes the Miata and they make this, right? They have to put in a little bit of that Miata flair to it. Mazda doesn't use the whole zoom thing anymore. Don't understand why, but you'd certainly still feel it within the chassis. It's such a great car to drive. It's a little firmer for some people, might ride a little bit more, I wouldn't say harsh, but just a little bit more firm. Some people might like a softer ride. But I think this is still a really good balance towards, something that's more engaging than something just a little bit more boring. It depends on the vehicle that you're looking for, obviously, but this, it's so entertaining on the road. And then on the highway, the radar guided cruise control works really well, the lane keep works well, it drives almost itself. It's not like full-on hands-off driving or anything like that, but the lane keep, it just keeps you right in the center. It just works, and that's exactly what you're looking for in those kind of active safety type technology that's built into the cars these days. It all just works. Two great products hitting the same segment, but for totally different audience. The Rogue, it's the one that's designed for family duties. It's more spacious, has more thoughtful features like that proximity door lock on the rear doors and the sunshade out back. It's efficient and allows you to stretch each dollar that you spend on fuel, and it costs less at 43,000 Canadian dollars. The CX-50, on the other hand, that's the one that you want to drive. It excites you. It allows you to feel like you're driving something smaller, more agile, more Miata-like, and it has all the power to back it up. Driving the CX-50, you won't mind that you have to spend a little bit more on fuel because you're not taking the straight way home. You're going to find a longer road, something to enjoy yourself a little bit more. And that's why for me, even on paper, the Rogue is definitely the better family SUV and the one that most people would probably go for. This CX-50, this is the one I would want to buy simply because of the way it drives. I'm willing to compromise on the space, the efficiency, and everything else that the Rogue has because I want a vehicle that makes me feel like I'm driving something more exciting, more fun. And I want that out of a vehicle if that's going to be my only car. At the current times, not a lot of people can afford a sports car and a vehicle for your family. This kind of blends in that. Sure, it's $4,000 at 47,000 Canadian dollars more than the Rogue. I think it's worth it though. In any case, thank you so much for watching this video. Like the video if you do, subscribe if you want to see more, and we'll catch you next time in other comparison, reviews, and so much more. Take care.